Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 NFL team preview. We're taking a look at the Detroit Lions. We're going to break down their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams to see what we can expect from the Lions this upcoming season.
There's a lot to like about Matt Stafford of the Detroit Lions. He has NFL-like skill set. He has a size. He has a jugs machine on his right arm. He just has to make better decisions with the football. He can't bail out of the pocket fast, and he also can't continue to get into that habit of throwing from different launch pad spots. Yes, I know you have a strong arm, but set your feet, make an accurate pass, and that's how you can lead the Lions to where they want to go. Because we've seen him be successful in this league. 10-6 2 years ago, led the Lions to the playoffs, first time in a long time. So talent is not the question for Matt Stafford. It's about consistency and accuracy. Behind him, I'm a big fan of what they have in Kellen Moore. I think he is the ideal number 2 player for the Lions. He can beat out Sean Hill if he's given a legit shot. And they also have Thaddeus Lewis. I think Sean Hill may be the odd man out for this season. Finally, the Lions have themselves a difference maker at the running back position with Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush gets a bad rap for not being a quote-unquote every down player, but we've seen him be consistent when he's given those consistent carries. We've seen his production the last couple of seasons with the Miami Dolphins, over 1,000 yards 2 years ago, and last year just fell short. So envisioning him in this offense, you can see how they're going to utilize him. I think he's best utilized in a single back or an ace situation. You run those outside zones. You let him pick and slide where he wants to go and burst down the field. He also can help them out in the passing game, as he's one of the better running backs catching the football out of the backfield in the league. Behind him, there's a lot of good depth with Mikael LaShore and Joique Bell. Both guys can step in and give Reggie Bush a breather. Also keep an eye on undrafted rookie free agent from Notre Dame, Theo Riddick, who has a lot of Reggie Bush-like skill set as far as being a versatile player. Started his career at Notre Dame as a receiver, moved back to the running back position, and now he definitely can give them that dual threat type of player, catching the football out of the backfield, even lining him up in the slot, so they can get creative with a guy like Riddick on their roster. Calvin Johnson is arguably the best receiver in the league. Last year, Johnson nearly missed becoming the first wide receiver in league history to top 2,000 yards. He's the focal point of their passing game, but once again, he needs help. Last season, they battled with injuries throughout this unit, so now at 100%, they need guys like Nate Burleson and Mike Thomas to step up and be consistent threats, so that they begin to loosen up coverage on Calvin Johnson, drawing stuff away from him, so that way they'll be able to operate with one-on-ones. And Ryan Broyles is coming off another ACL injury, so his status for week 1 is uncertain. So this unit could also benefit from more looks from Matt Stafford, who tends to lock eyes all the time with Calvin Johnson. That could be another reason why this unit didn't perform as well as they did in years previous. And there's also other guys that can contribute, like Devin Thomas, Chris Durham, or even undrafted rookie free agent Cody Wilson out of Central Michigan. I think he has a lot of potential as a slot wide receiver. The Lions are fine at the tight end position. They have 2 guys that are matchup nightmare for defenses. Brandon Pettigrew is one of the better tight ends in the league, young guy they drafted a couple years ago out of Oklahoma State. And Tony Scheffler, a dependable number 2 tight end that you can flex out as a wide receiver and he can get down the field. I also like what they have behind these guys. They drafted Michael Williams out of Alabama this year in the draft. He's more of a blocking tight end, can help solidify the running game. And keep an eye on undrafted rookie free agent Joseph Fourier out of UCLA, more along the lines of Tony Scheffler. Angular guy that can split out wide as a wide receiver, definitely gives them another red zone target. In order for the Lions to get back to the playoffs, they're going to have to be able to run the football, create some balance, and it all falls under the offensive line. Now, they're going to have some changes up front. They're going to move Raleigh Reef to the left tackle spot. He played right tackle last year as a rookie. Did a sound job. We're going to see how well he does protecting the blind side of Stafford. And the big battle, in my opinion, is going to take place at the center position. They still have Dominic Raiola, who I think is a liability up front in the passing game. So now he's going to have to compete with Bill Nagy, who's going to be coming off an injury. He missed the entire season last year. They bring him over from Dallas. So I think that's going to be a battle that Nagy can win. I think he gives them what they want at the center position. I think they're fine at the guard spot. Rob Sims, in my opinion, is one of the better guards in this division. A very good guard. And he's going to team up next to Larry Walford, who was a 3rd round selection this year, who I graded as the best guard in the draft. Walford shows great movement skills, so you can see how Detroit can utilize him not only in the running game on pulls and traps and sweeps, but also in the passing game, pulling him out, protecting Matt Stafford in the pocket. So I think this is a good pick, and I think he's going to have a lot of success as a rookie. At the right tackle spot, there's going to be a big battle between Corey Hilliard and also Jason Fox, and I don't think they can go wrong with either guy. Both excel at run block, and I think they're fine at that position. I'm a big fan of the Lions' defensive tackles. They have two good ones in Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley. Both guys are former first-round picks, and both have the ability to collapse the pocket. Suh got back to his disruptive ways last season with 8.5 sacks, and Fairley started to break through last year with 5.5 sacks. He just has to stay healthy. Now, they're thin behind those guys, but they do pick up C.J. Mosley from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's a productive player for a long time for the Jags, and he's going to help give that defense that rotation that they need. At the defensive end spot is where you have some questions. Gone is Cliff Averill and Kyle Vanden Bosch. Both guys will be replaced by Jason Jones coming over from Seattle, who's a very solid run defender, and rookie top 5 pick Ziggy Ansah. Now, Ansah is a guy that I would have taken maybe in the second round, maybe in the third round. There were better defensive end prospects on the board, like a Demontre Moore, for instance. I would have went with him instead of Ansah. But if you draft a guy in the top 5, you think he's going to perform at a top 5 level. They need him to step off the bus, ready to get to the quarterback. They also bring over Israel Adonijah from the Chicago Bears. It's a huge pickup, and they still have good depth guys in Willie Young as well, and also Ronell Lewis, whom they drafted a couple of years ago out of Oklahoma, who can come in the pinch and provide some burst off the edge. So they try to get better at the defensive end spot with some free agents as well as some draft picks. I even like what they have in their later draft selection in Devin Taylor coming out of South Carolina. I think he may be a better player than the Ziggy Ansah. This is a guy that's 6'7", 280 pounds, has the long arms, definitely has some pass rushing capability. I think you may see him a lot more than expected this season. There's a big question mark about the linebacking core for the Detroit Lions. You look at Stephen Tulloch, whom they re-signed in the offseason. He's a big piece to the puzzle. He's their middle backer and definitely is a productive player. DeAndre Levy is a very solid weak side backer, and there's questions everywhere else. I know at the strong side they have Ashley Parmalee, and I know he's slated to start, but he's going to have to hold off Tahir Whitehead, who was drafted in the 5th round last year, and newly signed free agent Corey Greenwood from the Kansas City Chiefs. I like Greenwood actually better than I do Parmalee. So the Lions do have a lot of questions going into the 2013 season at this linebacker position. Despite all of the injuries last season, I thought the Lions played well in the secondary considering the circumstances. Now they get guys back healthy at 100%, like cornerback Bill Bentley. He returns as one of the starters, and he only played 4 games last year before the injuries hit and he missed the rest of the season. And I believe the other starter cornerback should be Darius Slay out of Mississippi State, whom they drafted this year in the 2nd round. Some argue that Slay may actually be a better football player than his highly touted teammate Jonathan Banks. Chris Houston is better suited to play in the slot, in my opinion, and they still have depth with 2 younger players in Jonte Green and Chris Greenwood. So I'm fine with the cornerback position for Detroit. At the safety position, they welcome back a healthy Louis Delmas, who's one of the better young safeties in the league, a guy that can play both free and strong. They're going to utilize those skill sets as a strong safety this year as they bring over Glover Quinn in free agency from the Houston Texans. And that was a big pickup for the Detroit Lions, as Quinn is another one of these players that you can say got better each and every year. And I love the depth behind those guys in Don Carey and Amari Spivey. Both guys can step in the pinch and start a game or two, or they can also give the Lions that 3 safety look. So I like what I see so far from the Detroit Lions secondary. Now it all depends on whether or not they're able to get pressure up front. That's something that they wasn't able to do last season, and it caused these guys a lot of problems on the back end. Gone is longtime Detroit Lion kicker Jason Hanson, and in comes David Akers, another guy that's a very good player, is recovering from that hernia surgery, so he's looking to have a better 2013 season as opposed to what he did last year for the Niners. And the Lions are going to go with a rookie as their starting punter. Sam Martin was selected in the 5th round out of Appalachian State, who was one of the best punters in all of the FCS last season. And I think kickoff return duties and punt return duties will be held by Theo Riddick, who in my opinion is the best fit for the job, as he's a guy that can do both. He did both while he was at Notre Dame. Let's take a look at what the Lions have. They have an elite wide receiver in Calvin Johnson, an explosive running back in Reggie Bush, and they have 2 good tight ends. Anytime you have 1 good tight end, you're tough to defend against, but they have 2 good ones in Scheffler and Pettigrew. They also have the ability to apply pressure from the defensive tackle position with Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley. And third, they have a healthy and very underrated secondary. I think they're going to be fine back there this season. Now, what the Lions lack, they don't have a strong offensive line. A lot of questions have to be answered this year, as well as the consistency at the number 2 wide receiver position. They have a bunch of guys, a bunch of bodies, but no consistency, and they don't have a difference maker at the linebacker position. Those are the questions I have about the Lions and what they lack going into 2013. Reason for optimism for the Detroit Lions, the fact that this was a team 2 years ago made the playoffs with a 10-6 record, came into 2012 with a lot of optimism, had injuries right off the bat, and that's what depleted that secondary, and that's where they had a lot of their issues. So now you get those guys back healthy, you add talent on the roster at the running back position, something that they sorely lacked last season with Reggie Bush, and there's a lot of reason for optimism if you're a Detroit Lions fan. The cause for concern for the Detroit Lions will be if they came out of the gates slowly. They can't afford a slow start this season, and also they can't get one-dimensional offensively. That's something that is always a concern. Will Matt Stafford only look for Calvin Johnson? And defensively, will they be able to get production out of Ziggy Ansah? They drafted him high, 5th pick. They're going to need 5th pick type of production this year. The road to the Super Bowl for the Lions goes as follows. Number 1, Reggie Bush gives them the balance that they sorely need on offense and more explosiveness out of the backfield. Number 2, the defensive line restores the roar and be able to get to the quarterback like they were 2 seasons ago when they were one of the more feared defensive fronts in the league. And Matt Stafford spreads the wealth. We talked about this throughout the course of the video. If he can find these other targets, get those guys involved, it's going to open up that offense and force defenses to cover every blade of grass. Have the Lions finishing 4th in the NFC North. Do I think this team will be as bad as they were last year at 4-12? No way. They had a lot of injuries, and this is a much better football team, and they're well coached. The questions I have is about the offensive side of the football. Can they be consistent? Can Matt Stafford make better decisions? Can they become balanced enough to where teams have to respect the running game that opens up the play action? And defensively, do they have enough pieces on that defensive line, in particular the defensive end position, to be effective? Those are a lot of questions I have going into the 2013 season for the Detroit Lions in a division that's going to be very tough top to bottom. I also want to give a huge shout out to Detroit Lion fan forums for always showing football game plan support.